coming live on Twitch TV. I want to say hello to all the people who are in the Twitch chat, watching us live doing the Gimme the Hot Sauce podcast. If you would like to join, we are at Gimme the Hot Sauce podcast on Twitch TV, and obviously this is only our second week in this platform. We're going to hoping to grow as we continue to go along, as we learn the technology. We want to thank our great crew who's helping us out, making sure that all the technical things are done. We're also going to have our traditional podcast available, audio and visual, on YouTube. So, Stacey, bigger and better things, and we're trying to get with the times by going on Twitch. It's an exciting new concept.
Well, you know what, Mark? I was already with the times. Okay, so you know, there's some other people not with the time, but I've always been with the time. And you know, we jumped on this Twitch thing, and you know, everything's steps, everything's levels, kind of like the Bulls. You know, you get to the first round, next year you want to try to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. There's levels to this, so we're having a good time. Shout out to my little crew from Harper.
That's right.
We got Dangerous D, we got Nicky Knuckles, we got Cisco, and I ain't talking about the thong song Cisco, and we got Madi, and we got Madi Ice doing the social media. So shout out to those guys; they're doing a hell of a job for us.
So is Nicky like Nicky Knuckles? It's kind of sinister sounding. Right.
Well, you know what? I met him. I met this whole crew over at Harper. I was doing something for their class, and you know, he said he's a comedian.
That's
and
right.
So he wanted a nickname. So, you know, I told him you got to earn a nickname.
That's right. Can't just ask for one.
Can't
Recording
ask for
in
one,
progress.
But I ended up giving him a nickname anyway.
Well, tonight is going to be game one of the NBA Finals. As I mentioned, this is Thursday, June 2nd, that we're here at the Hustle and Flow studio. And it's been a long wait, it seems like. Golden State took care of business a little bit earlier than the Boston Celtics, who had to go 7 to eliminate the Miami Heat. But when you look at this up and down, really equal. I mean, Boston is number 1 in the league in defensive rating. Golden State's number 2. They both have multiple options where they can come at you scoring-wise. This has all the makings of a really good series, Stacey.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people, there are some people that think that Golden State's going to win, and they're going to win easily. I don't think so.
No,
This is a Boston team that can score the basketball. They also can defend. They have length. They did a great job. They split 1-1 this year with Golden State. Pretty much beat them handily the game that they won. They held them under 37%, 22% from the three-point line. Did a great job. I think that's when Curry got hurt.
Yeah, Marcus Smart rolled up on his ankle. Steve Kerr wasn't happy about that.
Steve Kerr wasn't happy about it, but it wasn't a dirty play. It was just a hard play by Marcus Smart. They're gonna have to defend. They're gonna have to get out to the 3-point line. The one thing about Golden State, Mark, that gives so many teams problems is the movement without the basketball. Yeah. They don't just stand and wait for the ball to come in the corner to jack up a three. They're constantly setting back screens, getting guys open, rolling to the basket, dive cuts, and you also got Klay Thompson now that's got his legs underneath him. That's the X factor to me, is how well he plays. He's been shooting the ball lights out for them in the playoff series in the Western Conference, and he's a guy, I think, if he keeps shooting the ball the way he does, there could be a long night for Boston.
And a lot of people think, if you don't watch a lot of Golden State Warriors basketball, you just think, well, it's the Splash Brothers. It's Klay Thompson and Steph Curry just launching threes, and, of course, Jordan Poole has really come into his own this year. But a lot of those motion things you're talking about are designed to get layups, back cutting, nice bounce pass, and just lay it in. They're not just a three-point shooting team.
Well, you know, Steve Kerr is kind of a disciple from Greg Popovich's movement and Phil Jackson's triangle. Mm-hmm. He's got a lot of those offenses implemented in there. There's not a lot of stand around. And, you know, the one guy that really makes it go that I don't think gets a lot of credit is Draymond Green. Draymond Green, when he was out the lineup, they were a different team. You know, they lost some games. They didn't play well. They didn't get those easy shots that they did. When he's out there on the floor, he's the facilitator. He's the point forward. He allows, you know, Steph Curry, Poole, Klay Thompson to operate without the basketball. So they can run down the floor, get to the three-point line, set a back screen, pop out. You get lost because you got to play the guy who dive cuts. And so they got so much movement and so much action in their offense. It sometimes confuses teams.
Boston certainly had a tougher path to get to the finals. They faced Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets in round 1, and they swept them. But then they had to go 7 games to beat the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks, 7 games to eliminate the Miami Heat. How much of a toll physically might that take on the Celtics?
I don't think it's going to take a toll at all, because you're playing for the championship now.
Right.
You know, if this was later in, second round, maybe. But I think now that once you get to the finals and you got here, they understand what it's all about. They're looking for banner number 18. They understand what the task is. They got to be focused. I think what gives them an advantage is their bigs. Their bigs are able to switch out and guard guys. Al Horford looks just rejuvenated.
Yeah, he did a nice job on Giannis in that Milwaukee series.
Did a really nice job. And you got Grant, you've got Williams. Those guys are really, really good. They can run at you different ways. And the good thing about them in this series is they're going to be able to switch on pick and rolls. They are going to be able to stay. You're not going to be able to stay in front of, Jordan Poole and Steph Curry because their range is unlimited. You're going to have to get up on them, and you're going to have to force them into drive, and that's where help defense comes in. Once they beat those big guys off the dribble, somebody has to step up and stop dribble penetration, because we've so used to seeing the Golden State Warriors get those layups from 30 feet. You see Steph Curry come in and doing the scoop shot layups. You cannot have that in this series.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the benches contribute. In previous series, there were so many star players injured. It's nice to hear in this series, none of the key guys are out. Robert Williams III is still hurt a little bit in terms of his knee. He's not as explosive as he was during the regular season. But Golden State is getting Gary Payton II back, who had that fractured elbow. He's making a quick return. The former Bull, Otto Porter, is coming back from a foot injury, and Andre Iguodala is also there. So basically, it's all hands on deck, which means no excuses. Let the best team win, and there's always going to be somebody that comes off the bench that has a big series. Who do you think might be that X factor, that underrated player that people aren't talking about right now?
Well, for Boston, I'm kind of thinking it's going to be Al Horford.
Mm-hmm.
Al Horford being able to stretch the floor, knock down threes. You're going to force Draymond Green outside the paint, which is going to open up driving lanes for Tatum and Brown. We know what those two guys are going to do. They have to play at a high level. If Boston's going to win this series, those two guys have to play like all-star caliber players. Smart, he's that third guy for them, and I think it's Horford. Horford's the key for Boston. And for Golden State, I say Wiggins. Wiggins to me has been playing phenomenal. He made the All-Star team this year. I thought in all the series that he played, you can switch him out on anybody, and he is comfortable being the third or fourth option. He wasn't comfortable being the number 1 or 2 option in Minnesota, but he's much more comfortable being that third or fourth option in Golden State's offense. And when you see your fourth option who's an all-star caliber player, boy, that's tough to match up with.
Yeah, and he's played excellent defensively. Did a really good job on Luka and played well throughout the playoffs. And he's going to have the assignment of guarding Jason Tatum, who really emerged in that Miami series. He's first team All-NBA. Jason Tatum's only, 24 years old, but he's a legit superstar in this league.
Well, listen, both those guys early in the year, they were talking about splitting those two guys up because they weren't playing well together. They were, it was your turn, my turn, alternating and, possessions. And they just didn't seem to get along. The chemistry was bad. And give Udoka a lot of credit.
As a rookie coach, too.
And his staff. They really, got these guys to understand what this is all about. Everybody wants to be the star. Everybody wants to be the superstar. Everybody wants to be, when everything is going good, that's when most of these guys want to be the guy. Because, when everything's going good, you scored 30 points and you win it and, you played well, that's when some of these guys want to be the guy. But it's when you're not playing well and your team is not doing well, can you do other things? And do you mind sharing the light with other players?
Mm-hmm.
See, and that's what I think is a lot of problem in this league is that you look at these two teams getting to the finals, they're very unselfish. They don't care who gets off. They don't care who scores. You think Steph Curry is sitting there going, well, boy, if Klay Thompson goes for 37, I'm going to be mad. No, he's like, man, we're trying to win. If you get off, if it's your night tonight, we're going to feed you. And that's why these teams are in the finals. Unselfish basketball. They don't care who scores. Just win by all means necessary.
Before we move on to talk about the Bulls and their offseason plans, want to throw a little bit of a bouquet to our old buddy Jimmy Buckets, who, remember last week we were talking about the fact that he had struggled in the middle games because his knee was really bothering him. Well, he said he talked to Dwayne Wade, and Dwayne Wade said, hey, forget about that. You got to put it all on the line. And Jimmy comes up with 47 points to win Game 6 in Boston to force the Game 7. He had 35, and he took that three that might have won the game for him. Some people were criticizing him. I thought it was a great shot in the flow of the offense there.
Well, the way I looked at that shot is he's their best player. He was the only one really playing.
The only one
playing the last two games. And you could tell that Jimmy was going for the win because you could tell that if they went to overtime, I don't know if he would have had enough to be able to play at the level that he needed in overtime. And I think in his mind is like, hey, look, man, this is how legends are made, and he's one of those guys. He doesn't shrink from the moment. He didn't shrink from the moment when he was here. He doesn't mind taking big shots. He doesn't mind taking that responsibility like, hey, I missed it. It's my fault. He stood up like a man and said, hey, look, my teammates thought it was a good shot. The coach thought it was a good shot. I thought it was a good shot. I just missed it. And if he would have made that shot, he took a lot of criticism. But who else would have taken that shot? You had Hero out. You had, you're not playing Duncan Robinson, so all your legitimate three-point shooters are not on the floor.
And Horford dropped back. He picked him up in transition, basically gave him that shot.
Well, when you're shooting 20-something% going into the finals, going into the playoffs, they're going to let you shoot that shot and play the percentages. But Gimme had hit a lot of big shots in that series. He carried him pretty much the whole playoffs. And I'm comfortable with him taking that shot. I mean, it's in transition. You're in the flow. It's like, hey, you're feeling it. You've come down and hit a couple of buckets to get back in the game. And then it's like, hey, Jimmy Buckets. Jimmy G Buckets. The G stands for gets. He was trying to get the bucket. People can be mad at him, but hey, not too many guys would have taken that shot. They would have probably wilted under that moment. He didn't.
So for the Miami Heat and 27 other teams, it's wait till next year. Look ahead to the NBA draft and free agency. How can you improve your team to maybe close the gap on the teams that made it to the finals? It's 3 weeks away from the NBA draft. That's going to be held June 23rd. The Bulls have the 18th pick. They do not have a pick in the second round at this point. So you know that AK and Mark Eversley are going to try to identify a guy that can really fit into their system. And we got a special treat for you coming up in just a few minutes. Jay Bilas, the lead college basketball analyst for ESPN, just an outstanding analyst.
Yes,
he does so much work in preparing for the draft. He'll give us some insight into the top college players and also some guys that might be around when the Bulls are picking. And Stacey, in looking at it now, one of the guys I like at 18 is E.J. Liddell from Ohio State. He's a little bit undersized. He's 6'7", but he's got a 6'11" wingspan, and he really improved his three-point shooting. I think he'd be a nice fit with the front line the Bulls have got put together.
Yeah, I mean, they do need depth at the power forward position. He does provide that. He's a big, strong kid that can rebound. He can defend. He can switch out and guard smaller players. He can block shots. So he would be a good choice there. There's also some other guys there. You've got the kid Easton from LSU.
Yeah, he's nice.
He's got the 7'2" wingspan at like 6'9". I mean, that's whew. And he's athletic. He's big. He can play multiple positions. As you know, in this league, it's all about versatility. It's all about how many guys can you put on the floor that have length. Length bothers people, especially with this three-point shooting that we have now in this league. You have to have bigs that can step out there and disrupt teams' offense when they want to play that spread, pace, and space type offense. So he's a good one. We keep thinking about Mark Williams, but I don't think he's going to.
No, he'll be long gone.
He's gone. He's gone. But there's a ton of guys.
You think Abaji would be gone too, right, from Kansas?
There's a possibility. He could be down there at 18. Mm-hmm. I like that kid. I think he plays hard.
He's a winner.
He defends. He's going to. I think he's going to have an opportunity to be a very good two-way player. There's a couple of guys in that draft, that I think's got a good chance. You got the kid Patrick Baldwin Jr., who probably should have stayed in school, but he's coming out.
He wanted to play for his dad.
He wanted to play for his dad. Didn't turn out the way the way he wanted. No. But he's a talented kid. He's got good length. He can shoot the basketball. Kind of slow release. But he's a guy that I could see, giving somebody some really, really good minutes as a rookie next year.
What if a kid like Malachi Branham, the freshman from Ohio State, falls a little bit? The Bulls don't need a guard, but when you're picking at 18, you just go for the best prospect and not worry too much about position?
Yeah, I mean, if he's the best, depending on where they have him on their board, if he's up there high on the board, and they projected him higher, to go somewhere in 1 through 15, and then he possibly slips, and he's the best available player on the floor. It's kind of like the NFL. You take the best athlete, you take the best player at that position, and you bring him on your squad. But I just like in drafts, past drafts, Mark, there's going to be guys that drop. There's going to be guys who are supposed to be a top 10 pick. You go back to Bobby Portis when he was at Arkansas. Bobby Portis was projected a top 10 pick, and then he slipped all the way down. There's been stories about this you've seen it every year. Guys who are projected high, end up being, going later than what they were supposed to, and teams are able to scoop them up, and then the teams who pass on them regret not drafting them.
We'll ask Jay Bilas about this in a few minutes, but the decline of the back-to-the-basket center is just overwhelming. You look at a kid like Kofi Coburn from Illinois. He averaged like 22 points, 11 rebounds.
It's a dinosaur.
Back in the 80s or 90s, he might have been a top 10 pick. He might not even get drafted.
Listen, America, I know we've gone into the three-point shooting. Somebody's going to have to be bold. Someone's going to have to say and buck the trend. It's going to take one coach who says, you know what? the big man is still, the top of the food chain in the NBA. And if he's a good big man that can run the floor, that's the thing about Clark. Can he run the floor? Can he consistently get out on defense? Can he block shots? Can he do those little things? Because a team like the Bulls need a guy who's a rim protector. Okay, if he can do those things and rebound the basketball, can switch out defensively and be able to stay in front of a guard 2 or 3 multiple slides and then hustle back and protect the paint, that's a great pickup for the Bulls. But as far as his offense is concerned, the Bulls wouldn't need him to score. All we need you to do is when we run a pick and roll, you roll to the basket, big fella, dunk it home. You know what I'm saying? That's all you would need. You don't need him shooting threes. There's certain guys on your team that you have that for. But your big guy, I like to see the back to the basket. I like to see the dominating big man because as DeMar DeRozan proved this year, the art of the mid-range jumper is back.
Right.
Everybody now is going to be trying to shoot mid-range jump shots because here's a guy who's almost averaged 30 points a game shooting mid-range jumps, shooting three or four threes a game, and he kind of debunked all the all the analysts and all the people on the side who say you got to shoot threes, you got to shoot threes. No, you don't. You can still get 30 shooting, and have a higher percentage shot and be much more effective shooting high percentage shots than those gambling at the three, unless you're Steph Curry, Jordan Poole, or Klay Thompson.
So we'll have a lot of draft talk coming up with Jay Bilas. But before we bring Jay in, as the world turns, it's the longest-running NBA soap opera. Where will Zach LaVine end up next year as fans wait breathlessly? And the latest news today was from Brian Windhorst from ESPN saying that what he's hearing is that Zach isn't looking to leave Chicago at all. So it's just a question of negotiating the best deal. Zach and his representatives would like the full 5-year max, and most likely the Bulls will offer it, and we're done.
Yeah, and I read something, I think it was on Bleacher Report today, where I don't know if Cap had mentioned it, but they were saying that there are some people in the organization, the Bulls organization.
Yeah, that was David Kaplan.
Yeah. That doesn't, that don't believe that, Zach has that dog in him to pay him max. And then there's other people in the organization who wants to pay him max.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. The Bulls have made it very clear that they want Zach back. There has not been any indication that they're not going to pay him the max. They've never said that. AK has been upfront and honest. Michael Reinsdorf came out. The owner came out and said that. So if the owner is saying that, and everybody has to answer to Michael Reinsdorf and Jerry. Those guys are the ones making those decisions. And if they're on board with it and they say we're going to pay whatever it takes, if it's the max, it's the max. So he's not going anywhere. It's going to be his choice. He's going to be the guy at the end of the day that makes a decision whether he wants to come back. It won't be because the Bulls didn't want him back.
And Zach had the minor arthroscopic knee surgery to clean up what was going on. It was causing pain in his left knee, but he's 27. It's not like that's going to be an issue where it's going to limit his career.
No, and this is a guy who came back from an ACL injury and looked better coming back from an ACL injury than he did before he hurt it. So, and Zach is going to work himself into shape. He's going to make sure that he's 100% when he comes back. He's going to do all the necessary things to be the player that we've all seen the last few years. He's not going to cut corners. He's not going to not go to rehab. He's not going to do those things. When people say, "Oh, he never showed up for rehab," but that's not Zach. Zach's a gym rat. He'll be back full strength, and he'll come back with something to prove.
And Zach is also very well liked in NBA circles. The Bulls are going to be operating with a limited flexibility in terms of what they can do in free agency. If they do sign Zach to a max, as we fully expect, they're going to get into the luxury tax territory, which means their mid-level exception is less than what the non-tax teams. It's about $6 million and change, which will limit the kind of players you can go after. But still, if there's vets out there that want to be in a winning situation and want to team up with guys like LaVine and DeRozan and Vucevic, they may take a little less money to come to Chicago.
Well, exactly. I mean, when you get to a certain point in your career, year 8, year 9, and you haven't been deep into the playoffs, you hadn't had an opportunity to win, you start to say, hey, look, I'll take less money to go to a place where I'm happy. There's a good team there. It's a great city. And they got a good front office. And that's the one thing that's been different than in the past is that the perception of the Bulls and what they're doing now compared to what they were doing years ago is totally different. Players look at, Chicago totally different now. Before, it was hard to get free agents here. It was hard to get guys coming to play here because, first of all, the pressure of playing in the house that Michael built, that pressure, and nowadays these kids want to pair up with 2 or 3 guys because they don't want that responsibility. But that's not the case now because you get a Vooch comes here, an all-star caliber player. DeMar was a free agent that came here. Lonzo Ball, Caruso. You've got guys now here that are friends because everybody talks in the NBA, Mark. Everybody talks. And I've heard DeMar say this. People ask him what it's like playing in Chicago. I love it. It's one of the best cities I've ever played in. The crowd is great. The fan support is great. And so other players want to hear that. Like, yeah, okay, cool. They're doing something special in Chicago.
And AK did an interview overseas that I saw. There's a quote on Twitter where he mentioned that we have to do more, that what I did wasn't good enough, that the city of Chicago deserves a championship, and I want to bring that to him. So he's not going to be sitting back in his office thinking, well, I did enough. We have a competitive team now. He wants to bring another championship to Chicago.
Well, and this is why Bulls Nation is going to love AK, because he's aggressive. He goes up there, man, he's like Kyle Schwarber, man. He's trying to hit a home run every single time he goes up there. He's going to make this team the championship caliber team that we've all grew up watching, or I played on. You've got this is a storied franchise. This is a dynasty. This is a team that won 6 titles in 8 years. It really should have been 8. So, when you walk into that building and you walk into that, United Center, you see the fan base that the Bulls have, worldwide, not just in Chicago, but outside of Chicago. I mean, we go anywhere. I mean, people are excited us coming to France.
That's right.
Seriously, on Twitter, I can't tell you how many people from France is so excited to have the Bulls. We can't wait for you to come, boom, boom. I mean, this is a worldwide phenomenon of a team. So, Michael created that. The Bulls championship teams created that. But this is a big-time brand, man. People love to see this team win. And the NBA, when the Knicks are playing well, Boston's playing well, and the Bulls here in the Eastern Conference are playing well, the NBA's right. When you get those 3 teams playing well, the NBA is good.
So for those of you out there, Bulls fans, that are thinking, we don't have any money under the cap and we're picking 18th. Hey, AK is like that riverboat gambler. He is going to throw all in to try to win that big pot.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that, America. Okay, Bulls Nation, they trust AK, Mark Eversley, JJ Polk in the process. They got Io last year. No one thought Io was going to fall that far. We got Io in the second round. Only had 1 pick in the second round. This year we got a first round pick.
That's right.
Okay, we don't got a second round pick. They got taken away from us. That's terrible. They try to get us. They try to keep us down, baby. But we still got a first round pick, and I trust AK. Listen, at the end of the day, your core group you got coming back. Zach comes back. Your core group is solid. Yeah. Now you just got to get those pieces, just like Phil Jackson and Jerry Krause used to do. We got our 7 or 8 guys. Now we have to build around those 7 or 8 guys. Right. That's how you get a championship caliber team. That's what Boston has done. Boston has got their core group of guys. They went out and brought Al Horford back from Oklahoma City, who was on ice like a caveman. Oklahoma City wasn't even playing him.
He was on a milk carton. He didn't know where he was.
They didn't release him. They just let him, hang out in Oklahoma City. And, he's come back. He's thankful playing, and they've kept their core group together. They went back and got Tice back, and, they got that whole group back. And, you got to get some continuity. You got to get a team has to gel. And that's why I'll be interested to see this team next year with not only what we ended the season with, but with a bunch of new players, some specialty guys, a 3-point shooter, a rim protector. They'll go get those guys because you got to remember this. Everybody can't get paid, Mark.
That's right. Not everybody's getting a huge contract.
Not everybody's going to get a huge contract. Yeah. So you are going to find some guys out there who have to get that mid-level exception.
And the Bulls, once again, are an attractive destination for NBA veterans out there looking for a chance at the ring. As we mentioned, coming up next, we're going to talk NBA draft with ESPN's lead college analyst, Jay Bilas. So stay tuned. I want to thank everybody who's with us on the Twitch stream. If you got a question, put it on the chat, and maybe we'll pass it along to Jay Bilas. So episode 81 of Gimme the Hot Sauce rolls on, but before we go to break, I want to tell you about our great friend, great sponsor, Jeff Vukovich. When it comes to insurance for your auto, home, and business, make sure you contact the king of insurance. That's our friend, nationwide agent Jeff Vukovich at jeffvuk.com. That's jeffvuk.com. And Stacey, how the Golden Pipes doing today?
Nationwide is on your side. Woo-hoo-hoo, the Golden Pipes.
The nationwide jingle, always in mid-season form. So coming up next, Jay Bilas joins us, episode 81 of Gimme the Hot Sauce. Episode 81 of Gimme the Hot Sauce rolls on. It's now our pleasure to welcome in the best basketball analyst in the land. That is Jay Bilas. You see his work on ESPN. He's busy preparing for the NBA draft, which is 3 weeks from today, and Jay will be front and center on all the network's coverage. Jay, thank you for joining us. And I guess my first question is, you and Stacey came up about the same time in the mid to late 80s. What did you know of Stacey King, the player, when you were at Duke?
Plenty. We played Oklahoma when I was in college before Stacey got there. But then when Stacey got there, that's when you saw how points were scored. Those guys. I mean, I thought they were really good when we played against them. When they had Tim McAllister and all those guys. Wayman Tisdale had just left by the time we played Oklahoma at our place. But the offense, and they scored a ton of points, but the offense really ratcheted up. With Mookie and Stacey, it was a different deal. That was sort of the pre-Loyola Marymount, but just about that kind of pace.
You know what's really funny, Jay, because I was considering Duke, my senior year in high school, because I got recruited by Carolina and they offered me a scholarship my junior year, but they didn't want me to go on any of my college visits. They wanted me to commit because they only had 2 scholarships a year, and I didn't commit. And I said, well, if you recruit me my senior year, I'm going to be a lot better my senior year than I'm my junior year. And they said, well, we don't know if we'll have a scholarship for you. So I started looking in the ACC of who's going to play Carolina and who's going to give Carolina, who I have the best chance to be on to beat Carolina. So I was looking at Maryland. I was looking at Duke, Wake Forest with Anthony Tichy and those guys. Virginia was kind of on the way down because Sampson and Lamp and all those guys left. But, yeah, Duke was on the come up. It's Johnny Dawkins, you, David Henderson. Y'all had a nice little squad.
We wound up being pretty good. We won 37 games our senior year, and we're number one, went to the title game. We lost to Louisville. But, geez, Stacey, if this was today, you wouldn't be messing with the scholarship. You'd have NIL deals and collectives after you. It'd be a whole different ball game, man. You'd be at a car dealership asking, picking out which ones you wanted.
Yeah, we had to do a lot of that under the table back in the day, Jay. Is there statute of limitations?
Yeah, I think you're okay, Stacey. I think you're safe.
NCAA's been 30 years, baby. Give me a break.
Hey, Jay, it's a tale as old as time. Stacey was almost all set to go to Maryland. He loved Len Bias. He wore 34 because of Len Bias. Is that right, Stacey?
Yep.
And what happened was, it was a girl, and he ended up staying home and going to Oklahoma. How often does that story happen, right, Stace?
Hey, man, you didn't need to tell everybody this. First of all, you didn't need to let
Sounds
everybody
like a
know.
smart decision to me.
Yeah, it was at that time, and we ended up breaking up before the first semester. So, I kind of got stuck in Oklahoma. So, yeah. Mark, you're not supposed to tell everybody that story, man.
Well, I thought Jay would appreciate that. The ins and outs of college recruiting. Sometimes it's just personal relationships that change everything.
A woman, man.
Common tale.
A woman, man. They brought down kingdoms.
Well, let's jump into the draft since I went into uncharted territory there. It looks like we have a consensus top 3, and then it's who do you like after that. But Orlando is going to have to make a decision at 2. What do you think? How do you think it's going to fall, the top 5, Jay?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm not even sure it's 3 anymore. I think it's coming down to Jabari Smith of Auburn and Chet Holmgren of Gonzaga, and they're 2 very different players. But in today's game, I've not seen a player quite like Chet Holmgren at 7 feet tall with a wingspan that goes to like 7'6" or 7'7". He's ridiculously skilled, can really shoot it. It's just sort of my old school mind. I've just never seen a body style like that in the NBA, except for maybe, Sean Bradley or Kristaps Porzingis. But he's different than Bradley because I think he's tougher. But he also is way more skilled. He can grab a rebound and bring the ball up, go behind his back, pass it. He knocks threes down with regularity. And since the game, both NBA and college, kind of gone away from low post play, he's not expected to be a 5-man, even though he's 7 feet tall. He's a perimeter big. But Jabari Smith, he's the one I like the best. Mm-hmm. He's the best shooter. And he's 6'10", and he's got a ridiculously high release on that shot. It reminds you, he's not Kevin Durant, but it reminds you of Kevin Durant, the way he shoots it. But he's actually a more fluid shooter, and he can block shots. He can switch onto multiple positions. and a good defender that plays really hard. He's just not he's not a big time rebounder. He grabs 7-8 rebounds a game, which is really good. But he's not grabbing 10 or 12, and he's not a big time offensive rebounder. But he's my preference. But I think if you canvass the league, it'd probably be 3-1 for Holmgren.
When you look at this draft, you got so many guys coming out of Duke. And the one guy that we liked here in Chicago before he started getting all the hype was Mark Williams. With his ability, first of all, with the reach that he has, the ability to block shots, rebound. And as you talked about, the new NBA where bigs have to switch out in the pick and roll and have the ability to stay in front of smaller players. I thought he would be perfect for the Bulls, but it looked like he's going to go much higher now.
My guess is, Stacey, he'll probably go around the top 10, but he could drop down. I mean, if he survives, 13, 14, I'd be shocked because he is a very good athlete. His body measures out to be like another Rudy Gobert, and lob threat, plays above the rim, blocks a ton of shots, changes a ton of shots, runs the floor. His hands are really good. He's not a stretch big. And while he does move his feet pretty well, he did get taken advantage of at times in high pick and roll situations. I mean, I know when they played North Carolina, Hubert Davis kept going to that and putting him in those ball screens to get him away from the basket. And it really was a little bit of a challenge for him, but he's still, 19 years old. So he'll figure a lot of that stuff out, but you don't see many Rudy Goberts running around.
No.
And he's actually probably a little bit better at this stage of his career, better offensively than Gobert. He's not a shooter yet. But I think he'll develop a little more there. But his ability to catch lobs, tip dunks, all that stuff, finish on the break, and he really does rim run very well. I agree with you. I think he's a kind of a gem in this draft. Another guy, a couple of guys like Keegan Murray from Iowa, I think is going to go top 5 or 6.
Wow.
He's super super talented, and all he cares about is doing the things that equal winning. I think he's not spectacular except in he does the things that you should do every play. And when you add it up, it's a spectacular performance, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's not going to be on Instagram all the time, but at the end of the game, in college, he averaged 23 points. He's grabbing 9 or 10 rebounds a game. He's blocking shots, getting steals, impacting the game in every way you want a player to. And his improvement from last year to this year, I think he's 21, maybe 22 years old, but his improvement from last year to this year was a quantum leap. And then the other guy I'd keep an eye on, even though he's probably a little bit further down in the draft, maybe the middle of it, is Malachi Branham of Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of one of those sleeper players that got a lot better from high school to the end of his freshman year at Ohio State. And he kind of fits the suit of the NBA. He's a 2-3 that can shoot it mid-range, get to the rim, finish, long arms, super athletic, and just has a knack to score. So I think he's going to be coveted in the draft.
Hey, Jay, here in Chicago, the Bulls have their first-round pick. It's at number 18. And last year, because of the injury to Patrick Williams, they were forced to play really undersized on the front line. They had Javonte Green, who stands about 6'4", playing the power forward spot most of the season, and that hurt them at times, especially when they matched up with Milwaukee in the playoffs. If they go for size to maybe get a power forward to add to their front court, a guy I like is E.J. Liddell, Branham's teammate at Ohio State. I know most of the mocks have him going in the early 20s, so he should be there at 18. Do you think the Bulls might be better served, though, to try to reach for the stars and maybe go for one of the international kids like this guy, 6'10" forward from Serbia named Nikola Jovic, I believe, and then there was also Usman Jang, who was playing in New Zealand. Do you know much about those international guys? Do you think maybe with the Bulls in a situation where they can win now, a safer, experienced guy like Liddell might be better for him?
Yeah, I mean, that depends on. I think you take the best player wherever you are in the draft, and there may be some points at the draft where you say, you know what, we're not crazy about what's available here. Let's take a flyer on this young player that may turn out to be this incredible find. I'm not risk averse in that way, or wouldn't be. I'm not risk averse at all. I don't have to make any picks, but I kind of like the idea of when you're drafting in that spot, unless you feel like you've got some diamond in the rough where you can hit a home run, hit the position. Like if you're drafting 18, draft a player that's going to be going to service that number. And EJ Liddell is going to do that. He may be undersized as far as his height, but he's long. He's really strong. Gets off the floor really well. He blocks and changes a ton of shots, especially given his size. And he moved from sort of a 4 position, played a little bit of 5 at Ohio State to then he played on the perimeter and guarded on the perimeter. I think the thing for Chris Holtmann was, he wanted to prove, Liddell wanted to prove that he could play away from the basket and defend away from the basket. And he did that last year. I mean, I don't think without Liddell, they would not have beaten Duke in Columbus in that game early on in the season. So I think he'd be a great, and he's solid. You know what you're going to get. And it's not like, at age 22, he's going to stop getting better. I don't know when that happened, when we started saying, well, the guy's 22 as if the next step is a walker and assisted living. Remember, Stacey, we were coming out, they were going, well, Tim Duncan's a rookie. He's got a lot to learn. Yep. He's 22, played 4 years in college. And now if he were coming out, they go, well, we know who he is.
Yeah. He's reached his ceiling.
Yeah, we know who he is. So I don't know what it is about basketball that does that, but I like the Liddell pick. But there are a number of ways you could go there. I mean, Tari Eason from LSU will probably be available at that point, or at least could be. And he's super athletic, can really guard people and really run, and very active and athletic. So there are a lot of options. And I don't know how many drafts we're going to have to go through where we spend all our time talking about the top guys, and then somebody out of the middle of the draft becomes the best player.
Yeah, we've seen that the last couple of years. Another kid I really like is Jay Bilas from Purdue. I think he's just super athletic. Yeah. Strong body. I think he translates to the NBA very, very well. What do you think about him?
I agree. I expect him to go right around the top 5. He could go 6. He could go 4. He could go 3. I mean, not everybody loves Paolo Banchero at 3. Most people do, but not everybody does. But Ivy's really dynamic. Really good, great in transition, good with the ball, can go off the dribble. He's a good finisher. I do question a little bit. I think he could be better defensively. I think he could guard harder and more focused. He's capable, but there are sometimes it didn't look like last year that the every play sort of was there in a college game. And even though I think, the uneducated may sort of bag on the NBA like they don't guard people, they do. And especially in the playoffs. And so I think he's going to have to ratchet that up a little bit, and he's capable of that. But I really like him. He's one of those guys where, it seems blasphemous to say this, but if his mental makeup is right, he's got some Dwayne Wade type capabilities out on the floor. He just needs to bring those out on a more consistent basis.
Jay, I asked Stacey about this earlier in the show. Locally, a kid like Kofi Coburn put up like 21 points, 12 rebounds a game at Illinois. He may not even get drafted. I broadcast Windy City Bulls games. They had a kid named Daniel Oturu, who was a 20-10 kid at Minnesota. He can't find a spot in the league. Guys, just aren't getting taken among the top 60 picks who might have been top 10, top 15 selections back in the 90s. What do you think of that phenomenon? Do you think it's ever going to go the other way again?
It's just, Mark, it's the way the game's going. The game's changed. I mean, there's an argument that I've made that, I think it took us way too long in basketball to figure out how important the three-point shot really was, sort of the asymmetrical threat that it is. I mean, it came in 1987, just the year after I graduated. And, the countless college coaches grumbled about it's going to ruin the game. And it's almost like, for people who harken back to the mid-range jump shot and talk about nobody takes a 15-footer anymore. They don't take it for a reason. It's not an efficient shot. And, you take it sometimes, you take it when it's open, you take it at the end of a clock, but you're not trying to get that shot. When Stacey and I were playing in college, we were trying to get that shot. We had no 3 back then. And so defenses were packed in, and sometimes that was the best shot you could get. But for somebody like Kofi Coburn, he's a stud player, and he's really difficult to deal with. But the problem is, as you guys well know better than I do, it's one thing for him to establish a presence if they wanted to play low post on offense, but that is going to clog some things up and make it more difficult to drive it and all that. but he's got to go down the other end and guard somebody.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And, yeah, and they don't he doesn't have to. He's not going to be guarding Bill Cartwright or Charles Oakley these days. They don't have those guys anymore. He's going to have to guard down on the perimeter. He's going to be putting a lot of pick and rolls, and he's going to have to guard cutters and switch and all that stuff. And that you don't see many guys like him in the league anymore, and it's for a reason. It's because they're having a hard time. Mm-hmm. The old school way of playing is, it's kind of like, the dinosaur period in a way. And it's like baseball people who are going, God, I used to love, like, now it's just, home runs and strikeouts. And I used to love the hit and run. Well, if the hit and run worked, they'd do it. The home runs are working.
Right.
And that's why they're doing it. And it's the same. I think it's the same in the NBA and college. And even not to I'm sorry, I'm rambling on this, but I always hear from my friends that love college basketball. They'll say, well, I prefer college to the NBA. And I'll say, well, if you do, it's not for the basketball. It's for the environments or all that. Because the NBA game, they make more passes per possession in 24 seconds than college teams make in 30. And they move the ball. They move themselves. It's a more wide open game. And it's a hell of a lot better played than college. College has a lot going for it. But we're kind of stuck in the old days of how the game's called and how it's had the rules and all that stuff. And if we were more like the NBA, it'd be a hell of a lot better game.
Is there some names out there, Jay, that no one's really talking about that you know that could possibly slip in and catch some people off guard with where they're selected?
Yeah, there's a kid at Kentucky who is kind of being called a mystery man named Shaedon Sharpe.
Yes,
and he's a wing and did not play this year at Kentucky, but he practiced. So when I would go to Kentucky practice, I'm sitting there watching him on the side while the team's practicing. I'm I've got a Kentucky game. I'm supposed to be watching the team, and I was watching Sharpe the whole time because he's really a talented player. And you're going, God, when is he going to get out on the floor? So while he'll kill it in workouts, and he killed it, on the side courts in practice, he can really shoot it, and he's really athletic and smooth. Like, he just glides around on the floor. I think you could see him go higher than people expect. I mean, there's a possibility he could go in the top 5, frankly.
Wow.
And move out a guy like Ivy or Murray because he is young and he's got a ton of upside. He can really shoot it. But you're because you haven't seen much of him. Nobody really has in this last year. I haven't seen him in 5-on-5 competition. You're not going to know as much. And that's sort of has always been the difficulty, frankly, for me in making my evaluations of players. And look, hopefully I'm right more often than I'm wrong, but I've been plenty wrong in the past. But when you watch them in a workout, I'm not sure I should watch workouts anymore because I don't know. It's kind of like seeing a person in shape at the gym. You say, boy, that person's really in shape, man, what an athlete. Well, it doesn't mean they can play 5-on-5. It's a 5-on-5 game. It's not a workout.
Hey, Jay, we joked about the NIL earlier in our interview, and you combine that with the transfer portal. It has totally shaken up the world of college basketball. How much of an impact have those two factors had on the college game?
It has, Mark, made an impact, but I don't think it's been particularly negative. It's just you're listening to the coaches complain because they're losing a degree of control. And it's really kind of hard for me. I love these coaches. I absolutely love them. And I would do anything for them. But I'm having a hard time listening to them complain about this. So the players get to factor money into their decisions now. Well, guess what? So does the rest of the world. It's not that big of a deal. Every student, every non-athlete student factors in money to their college decisions. How much does it cost to go to school here? Am I getting scholarship money? What does rent cost around that area? What does it cost for housing? All these different things. They make those decisions every year. And coaches make those decisions. It sort of strains the mind when a coach will just hire an assistant off of somebody else's team, and the assistant wants to be paid more than he's making now, so they have to make him an offer that's going to get him away from his current job. And then they complain about somebody like having to deal with a player asking for having to make an offer for a player. And how's it any different? It's not any different. You just did it, but it's business with the coach, and then they call it a bidding war with when it's a player. It's not a bidding war. It's just business. Like, make your offer. You guys probably know this, but earlier in the year, and this was reported, so who knows how much of it is true. I'm just going with the report as if true. So a player from Kansas State transferred to Miami, a basketball player named Nigel Pack, and it was reported to have gotten a 2-year NIL deal for $400,000 a year. Well, their best player at the time, Isaiah Wong, said, well, that's more than I've got. So, I mean, I want more, or I'm going to go into the portal, or I'm going to go pro. And people were like, oh my God, this is what we feared most, is the players are revolting. Like, he just said, look, pay me what I'm worth, or I'm going to leave. And I guess the guy running the collective said, no, we already made our deal with you. We're sticking with it, whatever he said. And Wong wound up coming back. So everything was fine. Everybody made their decisions. You know, if Miami wanted to pay more, they could have. They chose not to. And Wong could have left, and he chose to come back. It was pretty orderly, but it's just different from what we're used to. And, you know, back when Stacey and I were in school, I mean, we joked about the under the table stuff, but the NCAA and the coaches ruled with an iron fist.
Yeah.
You know, they said my way or the highway. Well, guess what? Now you can take the highway. So if you say my way or the highway, they get to take the highway. And it's going to be like any other business. You're going to have to, but the coaches are making more money than the school is paying out in scholarships. And so, the truth is the players are worth way more than any other asset in college sports. And we're going to have to deal with it because they've got some of their economics right now. And before long, they're going to have all of their economic rights and be able to bargain for their full value.
And now, Coach K is retiring. The great Coach K is leaving the program, and you got Jon Scheyer there, who's in pretty good hands. I think he's a good young coach. Is Coach K going to step away, or is he going to have a consultant role in the program?
Oh, Stacey, he's going to step away. In fact, I was just looking at the national pickleball rankings, and Coach K has moved way up now that he's able to practice. Yeah, he and his wife, Nicky, are a pickleball team. And, I mean, he's too young for shuffleboard, but pickleball's right up his alley. So, I think you're going to see a lot of him in those, ESPN3, the pickleball championships. But he's going to be around. He's still keeping his office. I don't know how often he'll be there, but I think it's going to be really good for Jon Scheyer, who is his own person. Like, Jon does not need help, but for all of us, when advice and help is available, it's a nice thing. So Coach K will be around, but I don't think he's the type that'll hover or be a distraction. But I think it'll be nice that if Jon or any member of his staff have a question about maybe trying to manage something with the administration or what best way just to get ideas. And Coach K is always, at least in my experience with him over the last probably 40 years, he doesn't like offer you advice as much as he helps you ask yourself the right question. Or questions. And that's always been really effective. Like, when I've asked him about things, he's always gotten me to ask myself the right questions, and then I can make the best and most informed decision. And it's a nice little way to help guide someone where you're not just saying, all right, here's what you do. Hey, when in my day we did this. He doesn't do that. He's much better than that.
Hey, Jay, before we let you go, I just want to follow up on that. What was it like for you covering that as a member of the media, Coach K's farewell tour? Did you find yourself getting caught up in it at times, especially when he gets to the Final Four and maybe has a chance to watch his team cut down the nets one more time?
Yeah, I mean, it was challenging in certain spots of the year. For most of the year, the challenge was with my ESPN colleagues was let's not overdo this. Mm-hmm. Let's not go, hey, it's the last time Coach K is putting his socks on in Little John Coliseum. Who cares? It was more let's keep our powder dry till the end of the season when it's really going to be at the forefront of everyone's minds, and it's going to make sense to everyone. I mean, the last thing I wanted was for the average basketball fan to be rolling their eyes every time they heard about, Coach K's impending retirement. It was a little bit of a challenge in the last game at Cameron, the Duke North Carolina game, because there were so many former players back. And I'm one of them. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a question of objectivity. it was sort of a question of, how are you going to feel? I mean, I think anybody watching that has to feel something. That Coach K has been a part of this game and a big part of it for so long. We're saying goodbye to a fixture in the game almost, and no unquestionable icon. The interesting part, the Final Four was to me a little bit unexpected that they got there. I thought with their draw they might get beat, in the Elite Eight. But when they got there, there was this gravy feeling that whatever happens, it's going to be great. But it was interesting. I was calling the games for ESPN International, so I was right next to the CBS position down low, almost center court. And when you're calling the international games, I'm a huge star in Sweden now. My NIL deals in Sweden and Latvia have gone through the roof. But when North Carolina won, it was a really interesting feeling for me because I'd worked so long with Hubert Davis at ESPN. We're great friends. And I was so happy for him, and his team was running around. And then I looked down the other end, and Coach K was walking off the floor. And so, it's his last time walking off the floor. But I didn't feel sad. I felt grateful. Grateful, obviously, for all he's done for me. What he's done for me, you can't put into perspective or words. It's so profound, but also what he's meant to the game and to the American sports landscape. It was just sort of a gratitude feeling. It was kind of nice, honestly. It was a nice feeling rather than lamenting the end of something, because he's still going to be around. And I will, he watched me play high school basketball. I know he's recruiting me, but I'm going to go to all his pickleball games. I'm going to be very supportive and make sure I'm there with a cold towel and maybe some chamomile tea afterwards, a little Ben Gay. I'm going to be there for him like he's been there for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I tell you what, Jay, we really appreciate you coming on, man. Your insight on the college basketball is unbelievable.
Well, Stacey, Mark, thank you guys for having me. I'm big fans of yours, as you know, and really appreciate being with you.
Yeah, Jay, as we say goodbye, you might want to know that we are the #1 rated basketball podcast in Finland, so we got something in common with you, okay?
Man, we joke about it, but I'll tell you what, Viking love is important to me.
Absolutely.
I want the Vikings to like it.
I feel you, Jay.
Jay, thank you so much. Remember to watch Jay when the NBA draft rolls around. That's coming up on June 23rd. He'll be doing all the preview stuff for ESPN. Does great work throughout the season. Jay Bilas, our special guest on Gimme the Hot Sauce. Episode 81 to Gimme the Hot Sauce rolls on. We hope you appreciate that great draft analysis from Jay Bilas, talking about some of the top prospects in the draft, as well as some of the guys who will be available when the Bulls select at number 18. Stacey, I thought it was fascinating. A lot of the stuff, he has such great insight into watching so many great college games throughout the year. I mean, he's going to give it to you straight in terms of who the Bulls maybe have a shot at this year.
Yeah, I mean, I look at him and Kirk Herbstreit for the college football as two of the best analysts when it comes to college sports. Jay Bilas, he just rattled off guys. We hit him with some names. He knew exactly who they were, their stats, how they're going to, come to the NBA and how they're going to, transcend to the NBA. Just really, really good analysts. I love listening to him.
And if you're watching the live Twitch feed or if you're watching on YouTube, you notice that Timmy Whispers has joined the fray. And there is a reason for that. If you caught last week's episode with Trae Young, his question almost ended the interview. So we had to make sure that he didn't offend our guest again. You got anything to say about that, Tim?
Well, I had a list of offensive questions for Jay, but Stacey reviewed them and said, you're not part of the segment.
I had to call him last night before the show, and I had to ask him, what questions are you going to ask our guests tomorrow? I need to know.
If a bird landed on his head. But
yeah, tell us some of the questions you're going to ask him. Go ahead.
Well, one was about his being roasted in Kentucky, and then how he calmed the crowd down by saying, you all need a lot of therapy. He did actually say that.
Yeah, he was, I guess, with the Kentucky Derby.
And then a bird landed on his head. That's
my goodness.
So the Kentucky Duke, because, the Kentucky Duke rivalry.
Sure.
Christian Laettner hitting a game-winning shot against Kentucky. Everybody in Kentucky hates anything that has to do with Duke. So I guess he was doing a appearance at the Kentucky Derby, and he got booed mercifully. Boo! Boo! I mean, really booed. And
that's a Louisville crowd too.
Yeah, it was a Louisville crowd, but he got booed big time, man. And he's a funny dude. Like, he's a funny
Yeah.
guy. I mean, even in the interview, you hear him. He's got a great personality, a little comedy. He was a funny dude. So he handled it with humor.
Stacey, I know you want to talk a little bit of boxing. It seems like some of the lighter weight divisions are showing some superstar potential.
Yes, as a UFC fan, I felt the UFC was taking over combat sports, but boxing is coming back. So all my little boxing fans out there, I hope you saw this weekend's fight. Gervonta Davis versus Rolando Rolly Romero. The guy that talked his way into a title fight. Talked all this trash, said he was going to knock out Gervonta Davis in the first round, and he went to sleep himself in the sixth. Yeah, it was an explosive fight. I mean, when you're watching this boxing now, normally it used to be the heavyweights, but the power boxing now is the lower weight classes, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, super middleweight. You've got Errol Spence. The fight's coming up with him and Terrence Crawford, who's a welterweight champion. That's going to be an electric fight. You got Canelo now, who just lost. He's coming back down. He's going to fight Triple G, which I thought, this will be their third fight. Canelo won both of them, but I thought Triple G won the first one, so it should be a rubber match. It'll be a good one. But Canelo is younger than Triple G. Triple G is getting up there in age, kind of taking a little bit too much. So the fight doesn't mean the same. You got the Charlo twins that are dominating their division. I mean, there's some really, you got a big fight. Devin Haney in Australia fighting George Kambosos, who won the title from Teofimo Lopez. Took the title from him. And so Devin Haney now is going down there in the lightweight division to try to win the lightweight championship in Kambosos' backyard, which is tough. They didn't allow this how cheap the Australian people are down there. They wouldn't let Devin Haney's dad travel with him, his head trainer. So most of his team is not going down there with him. He's going down there with some fill-ins, which is tough to do. But the kid is talented, super talented. But there's going to be a lot of fights. A lot of fights coming up. That's really worth watching.
Think it could be like in the 1980s when more people were interested in the welterweight and middleweights than they were in the heavyweights, because back then you had Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler, Hitman Hearns.
Well, and you like excitement. You like to see people get knocked out. People want to see the best fighters fighting each other. That's what you had with Hagler and Hearns, and Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard and Duran. That's what got boxing to a pinnacle. And they kind of gotten away from that. And now you got these younger fighters. There's so many talented fighters between that 135 and 147-pound range. I mean, there's some superstar kids, a lot of championship fights to be made there, which will bring boxing back up. Still, UFC is still right now, in my opinion, as far as the gate and as far as the excitement and making the best fighters fight each other. Right now, the UFC is still ahead, but boxing is gaining ground.
Wish we could have seen Whispers in his heyday fighting.
You can just see the scars now.
Hey, listen.
Hey, for people who missed that story, tell the folks again about why you got involved in it.
Why I got involved in MMA?
Yeah.
Well, that's because I was being bullied like all kids. But no, that's not the case.
He started fighting at 30. He was still getting bullied.
Getting bullied.
Still getting picked on.
Oh, my God.
By my employees.
Oh, my God. By his employees.
No.
Pavel was bullying him.
He was picking on me. But no, it was for my son. And then, of course, then I like anything, it ignites the inner ego, and then you have to get going. So then I found myself in the ring sparring with Andrei Arlovsky and took a good right hook and cut open my left eye. And as I was bleeding on the mat, said, I'm paying for this? And he said, yes.
Now, did he knock you out?
Pretty much. I mean, I was just dazed and confused.
Explains a lot, doesn't it, Stacey?
Yeah, it does. I'm gonna tell you something, America, Bulls Nation. Listen to me. Don't be caught off guard by Tim getting knocked out by a UFC heavyweight champion. Tim's got a good knuckle game. Don't sleep. If I had to go down an alley, Timmy Whispers would be right there with me, and I would not be afraid whatsoever if we had to fight 5 or 6 people. Because Timmy Whispers can throw them things. He's been known to choke people out. Don't sleep.
That's true.
Don't sleep.
Except I did get choked out by Damian Maia, too, but that's another story.
Damn, you just got your ass kicked by everybody.
It's a badge of honor for Whispers.
Have you won a fight?
Hey, they were both champions in the UFC.
I mean, have you beaten anybody?
Yeah, well, my sister. No.
Oh, wow.
Actually, she knocked me out, too.
Oh, wow.
And
He's got a twin sister.
That's true.
He's got a twin sister.
Yeah.
Hey, we want to thank everybody who's been participating on the Twitch chat. We got a question, Stacey, from Barca Gang. He's asking, there's more fights really in all the weight classes. His question basically is it because there's more talented fighters or because they're getting less money, they have to fight more often?
No, it's just more talented fighters. I mean, these guys still are making money. With the social media, these guys now are in social media as we're starting to figure out, social media is huge. I mean, there's a guy named Ryan Garcia who has, 15 million followers, and he hasn't really beaten anybody, but he always has his name in the big fights, and he still won't fight anybody. He always pulls out. It's like one of those things like, I want to fight Tank. I want to fight this guy. And then when the fight's made, I don't want to fight right now. I got to do grocery shopping. He has all kinds of excuse, and so but he has a following, and boxing is starting to get popular because at the lower weight classes, from that lightweight division 135 till I say 168. I mean, there are some killers there, and there's a lot of fights to be made. Those guys just have to fight each other because a lot of times it comes down to negotiation. Who has the most titles? Who brings in the most crowd? Who's going to be the A guy and who's going to be side B? And that's where you get into a lot of problems in these promoters. They have a lot to do with it. Barbara Arum, he's very tough to negotiate with. A lot of people don't want to negotiate with his fighters. That's why Terrence Crawford is leaving to be able to make the fights that he wants, to make the money that he wants.
Yeah, I know you had a question earlier when we were talking basketball. One of the Twitch folks wanted to ask you a question.
Oh, yes. Okay. This is to Mr. Gumby World. His question to us was, do you think Acme, which is AK and Mark Eversley, goes for a backup or starting big in the offseason? Wondering where Vooch will slot in next year. Well, Vooch ain't going nowhere.
No.
He's not going. I think he's under – next year's his last year. He'll be a free agent after next year. And Vooch, you're going to get a good Vooch, I think. I think you're going to get, his contract year.
Highly motivated.
Yeah, highly motivated Vooch. So I'm excited about that. They're gonna find someone. Like I said, everybody's not going to get paid in free agency. Everybody's not going to get the big contract. You're going to be able to find some really good players. Now, the question for the Bulls is, do we get a guy who's young, 25, 26 years old, that we can develop and not have to pay him super, super high money, that mid-level exception, and then he hasn't reached his prime yet? There's a lot of guys out there, man. There's guys on teams' benches that you've seen come in and play well, just don't get a lot of playing time. Like you look at Milwaukee and Pat Connaughton. I think he's a free agent this year. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people trying to get him because of, one, he can shoot the ball, he stretch the defense, he's athletic, he can defend, and he's going to have some people try to get him. So there's guys like that on teams' benches that you're going to be able to, basically make a run at.
We'll talk a little bit of baseball before we get out of here. Both Chicago teams have been kind of treading water right now. Win one, lose one, win two, lose two. White Sox, though, are falling behind the Minnesota Twins. Last I looked, they were 4.5 games behind in the division, and they lost Tim Anderson to a groin injury. The expectation is he's going to miss at least 3 weeks, but when it happened, they had to help him off the field. There was thought he could be lost for months. Is this the signs of, you played at the highest level? Sometimes things just don't go right, and they kind of snowball for you. Baseball's a long season, but you don't want to fall too far behind.
Last week, we were just talking about the White Sox getting healthy and being able to turn it on in the second half. Oh, man, White Sox fans, I feel your pain right now. This is kind of what the Bulls went through this year. You go off and start off great, and everything's great, no injuries, and then all of a sudden the injury bug hits, COVID hits, and it completely wrecks your whole season. And, they're not going to be the only team. There's going to be other teams that go through this too. So they just gotta try to hold on. Last year they had so much depth. They had quality depth, so guys were able to fill in. They were able to, not miss too much of the guys who were out. And then when they got those guys out, they were stronger at the end. So it might be tougher this year.
Whispers, I had a good friend who's a passionate Cubs fan, and he always gets angry on Twitter, and he puts all these crazy comments on there and says, people shouldn't go to the games anymore because the Ricketts won't spend any money. Well, people love going to Wrigley Field because great bar area, restaurants around there. It's fun to sit in the bleachers and swap stories with your buddies and drink some beers. What is the best thing for fans to do to try to send a message to Cubs ownership that you're not happy with the current state of the team?
Stop buying that $15 beer.
Much better price here at the Hustle and Flow studio.
Yeah, it's a much better price.
Yeah, it's free. It's free, America.
Yeah, that's a tough message. And the $10 hot dogs.
Yeah. You better take a lot of money if you're going to go to a ball game. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and they're collecting the rooftops now, too, and those are no bargain either.
No, they're not.
No.
Man, it used to be a great place, the rooftop. We used to go there all the time.
They used to be the thing.
Oh,
Yep, and now that's a $15 beer and a $10 hot dog.
oh man. Oh, the rooftops, boy, great memories.
Still is a great atmosphere at Wrigley Field. That's why those stands are packed almost every game. Hey, before we finish up, let's get some finals predictions. Let's start with whispers. Who do you like, the Warriors or the Celtics, and how many games?
I'm going to go Warriors in 6, and I think it'll be Steph's first MVP.
Yeah, people are saying that's the big thing missing on his resume, that he's never a finals MVP. I think that's overstated, but I guess that's somebody's opinion.
But the way he's been playing this year, I could see it.
Yeah, I don't, man. I think it's going to go 7. I just think Boston's defense, and it all depends on health for them. You know, if Williams can stay healthy, Marcus Smart you can't miss any games in the finals. You can't have guys sitting out 1 or 2 games in the finals and one team being healthier than the other, because whoever's the healthiest is going to win. Boston's defense is going to give them a puncher's chance. But I see Golden State winning in 7.
Yeah, originally I was thinking I was going to take Boston, but the more I think about it, it's tough to handle that Golden State defense. It's not like we talked about earlier. It's not like they're just jacking up threes. It's constant motion. You're going to get in foul trouble. They're going to get to the free throw line where they have some of the best free throw shooters in the history of the game. I just feel like with Steve Kerr and that group and their finals experience, I think the Warriors are going to find a way to win it. I think it'll go 7, though. I think Boston will extend them. I think each team will win one in the other team's building, and all come down to play for all the marbles in Game 7.
Well, and I think if Boston wants to have a chance, you got to punish Steph defensively, because they do a great job of hiding him. You know, he's not a typical switch guy. And they push him to where they need him to go, wherever the mismatch is. So most of the time in the pick and roll, he's diving into the paint to guard a Horford or a Williams in the paint. And that's where Boston has to punish him. You cannot let him just, rest on defense and be able to kill you on offense. You got to punish him on any pick and roll switches. If he switches to a big you go right into the post, force a double team, swing the ball, find your open shooters. You got to punish him.
One more question from the Twitch chat before we say goodbye. Young Jordan asked Stacey, chances we get Mitchell Robinson of the Knicks or Mo Bamba of the Magic? Now, you'd have to – those guys are restricted free agents, but as you said, AK is a wheeler dealer.
Well, depending on who Orlando drafts, I think they're gonna let Mo Bamba go. I don't know if they'll do a situation where they'll try to trade him for a pick or something, because they're gonna get a good player at number 1. I mean, they're gonna get either Holmgren, they're gonna get Smith, they're gonna get one of those 2 guys, which is now you've got a surplus of front court players. Because you got to remember, Orlando's got Jonathan Isaac coming back.
Yep.
Okay, you got Wendell Carter, who played well for him last year. I mean, they've got a big front line to go along with the nice guards that they have. So that might be the team next year that takes that step that you saw Cleveland take this year.
Right.
It's a surprise team of the Eastern Conference that didn't make the playoffs this year, but they got enough talent, enough young talent now to make that leap up to make some noise and claim one of those playoff spots.
Mitchell Robinson would be nice as a rim protector for the Bulls.
Yeah, but if I had to take the 2, if you're asking me, if I'm playing GM in the chair, I'm taking Bamba, because the fact that Bamba is also a rim protector, but he's also kind of like Clint Capella. He can switch out and guard smaller players and contest shots. He's a better three-point shooter than Mitchell Robinson. At least he takes more threes. Mitchell Robinson is really a 6-and-in guy. Roll to the basket, rim finisher, rim punisher. But Bamba can do a lot of different things. He's a poor man's Clint Capella, and I think put in the right situation, and you can get him to get his confidence. Because in this league with young players, there's a reason why that kid was drafted number 5 in the draft, okay? He didn't forget how to play basketball. If one thing he can do is rim protect. And that's all we would need him here in Chicago. We just, hey, big fella, we just need you to, anything comes to the basket, it's a block party. And make sure you send out invitations. That's what we need you to do.
I noticed a lot of chatter on Twitter this week about the hot sauce. People are really enjoying it, and one guy I know was asking, can you make it a little hotter? And you showed him the picture.
Yes.
You showed him the picture, said, this is where you got to go.
Listen, you know what? I'm on Twitter. And people, he said, first of all, the guy sent, I forgot his name. I wish I had his name right now. But he sent me a plate of food.
Yeah.
Like, it first of all, it was bland. It had no sauce and nothing on it. Like, I didn't care. If you ain't got my hot sauce, put some Cholula or something on it. And so I'm looking
No, don't do that.
No,
They got yours.
No, I want him to have my hot sauce. But if he didn't have my hot sauce, he didn't know about my hot sauce, which he didn't know.
Okay.
You should have had something. Put some water on it or something. I'm like, damn, you know, man, give it some moisture. And so I said, hey, man, why don't you have my hot sauce on there? And he's like, you have hot sauce? I didn't know you had hot sauce.
See?
I said, okay. So I sent him the pictures of the bottle, and he went and ordered it. So shout out to them. I think we probably sold about 10 bottles off Twitter.
We're here to spread the word. So go to GimmeTheHotSauce.com.
4 delicious flavors. Yeah. And we're coming out with a surprise 5th, but we're not telling you when.
Stacey's secret sauce.
Secret sauce. Oh, and she'll like it too.
We're going in the wrong direction here.
Oh yeah, we are. We just took a turn down the wrong road.
D, I think it's time to fire up the music. What do you think? As we bring an end to 81 and Give Me the Hot Sauce, I want to thank Jay Bilas, who was an outstanding guest, gave us all kinds of great intel on the upcoming NBA draft. And for people on the Twitch chat are asking if we're censoring whispers. We're not. We're just messing around. He had a high-level business meeting, and he couldn't join us.
He was trying to make some money. He's trying to collect the bag.
That's right.
American. Drive home safely. Chicago, beep, beep. See you next week.